I remember on the last night of Portugal, I was in not like pain, but just so much discomfort that I couldn't really sleep. I was like, I just can't wait for this to be over. Like tomorrow I get to finish. And Ollie was like, don't wish it away. Don't wish tomorrow away because I know as soon as you finish, you'll be like, oh, I want to be back running again.
Let's just first start with the stuff that put you on my radar, and that is running across Portugal. Can we just get some high level? Like, I mean, I think I don't want that to be the end all be all. I want this to be the entry into getting to know you. Can you give me like by the numbers? How far was that run? How long did it take you? Like, let's start there.
Yeah, so it was from Lisbon to Santiago de Compostela, which is obviously a pilgrimage route.
Yeah.
And that was lovely in its own way. It was 650 kilometers.
Okay.
And it was done in 5 days and 17 hours.
Did you say 5 days?
5 days and 17 hours.
Okay, those were huge days.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you're doing like, I mean, help me out here. It should be easy. 110 kilometers a day, 100 and something like that?
Some days a lot bigger than others. Day 2 was a real struggle.
Okay.
So that only was about 94 kilometers, which obviously made other days really big.
Yeah.
I think my last day was actually 130 kilometers in the end. But when you know you're going to finish,
yeah,
it doesn't matter, does it?
It gets exciting.
Get it done. Let's walk the last 20.
Were you running with speed in mind? Like, was this an FKT attempt for you?
Yeah. So originally it was mainly to embrace Portugal and sort of enjoy the new country that I've just moved to.
Got it.
I hadn't actually known about this, but Ollie, my husband, knows about this route, and he was like, "This is so cool, we should do it." And obviously my brain went, "Oh, maybe I could run it." And then obviously it snowballed from there. So all Ollie's fault that I ran it. And yeah, so once I'd sort of chosen that and I'd sort of looked into it, I was trying to figure out how many days I could realistically do it in. And I was thinking about TSP and how much I'd run then and how much I've been training since then. And I was like, okay, maybe 100 a day, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so I looked at the FKTs and I was like, I think I could definitely make this an FKT. And then it was just like, enjoy the day. And I did want it to be a push. So I did want to really push myself, but I also wanted to enjoy it. It was all about the adventure and taking friends along for the ride.
Gosh. Okay. So how long did TSP solo take you? Did you do LA to Las Vegas, or which TSP solo? You did that one. Okay.
Yeah. So I did that one, not this year, last year. And that was my first, so I'd only ever run 100K once before that.
Yeah.
So it was a big leap up. And with that, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Whereas I think this one, I sort of understood a lot more about myself and how to plan and just generally understand how to go about it. Whereas TSP, what did I do? I'm trying to rack my brain now. It was about 100 kilometers a day. So I did it in 112 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So for where I'm at in my running, like I'm looking, like I mentioned, like for inspiration, I'm looking for that thing. Like I'm a very hard person to inspire. So it's, it's nobody's fault. I other than my own, like, but I'm just kind of, I'm on the hunt for it. And I think about these big efforts and I'm by no means a speedy runner, but I'm on the hunt for like, self-actualization, I suppose is a way to think about it. But I mean, what put that on your radar? I mean, it's not the average person. I know once you get in this world, you start to see people like a Robbie Ballinger or, Will Googe, who just did it after you did Portugal, did Australia, or Ned Brockman. Like there's people doing this all the time, not all the time, but it's notable when it happens. What put it on your radar? Like, were you looking for inspiration? Like what's your sort of like foundation in thinking other than, yes, you said introducing you to this country, like getting close to the country, like what, but when you put pen to paper and start to map it out and all the trouble with that and trying to find the money to be able to make stuff happen, like what made you put one foot in front of the other?
Yeah, I think doing all of the behind the scenes is not really my forte. I really like, if I could, I would just step out the door and go on the adventure.
Yeah.
That's how I thrive in those sort of situations. It's the actual adventure side. So I'm always looking I'm very like free spirited in that way. I just want to go, and have an adventure.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously when you're doing stuff like this, you do have to do a lot of planning. And that is where a team comes in for me. I really rely on my husband and the paces that I have and everyone that then supports me in it, because they do a lot of planning. They do a lot of what food should you have and all of those little things that I really don't like thinking about.
I mean, ultimately, one of the things that I'm very curious about. So, I was always like this dirtbag trail runner guy. I just love, I love the event. I've been into the event, and that's kind of what you do in that world. You run your 100-miler every year, or at least you try. But then this self-expression thing came on my radar last year, Paris Fashion Week, and I just started to chase it and become interested in it, though I'm not like squarely in it myself. So when I say self-expression movement in running, does that mean something to you? Like, is that like a term that's been adopted, nationwide, worldwide?
I guess for me, it's really different because I haven't come from that.
Yeah.
So I'm so new into running.
Yeah.
I started at the end of lockdown, and I think I did my first ultra maybe 2.5, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And so for me, this whole world's very different. It wasn't that I was following running and I was following these ultras and that's how I sort of progressed into doing them. It was more that I was running. I sort of found that path of like, well, if you've done a 5K, you do a 10K, and then you do, a marathon. But a marathon wasn't really, I just didn't quite gel with it.
Yeah.
And I found then trail running and I was like, oh, nature, this is what I love. And so I guess it was a different path for me. So maybe it's not in my head that same self-expression. It's more that I just found this love through trail running.
Yeah.
And then I realized I don't really like going fast. I don't like going to a track. It just sort of, I was doing them because other people did them. And then I realized actually the people that I met through these trail races I just found more community there. And I was connecting with people, even on social media, through like ultra running and things and at these events. And that's just sort of, I mean, there must have been a conscious decision, but it felt like I just sort of found myself here. Like, this is just where I feel at home and this is what I love doing.
Yeah.
So I guess that's sort of how I found myself there. In a really floaty way.
Yeah. I mean, so, knowing a little bit of your background, there's a great interview you did on the Run A podcast for someone to go into, deeper dive into how you arrived at this point. But you were an elite swimmer, right? I mean, were you a sprinter when it came in swimming?
I was a sprinter. I was like a 100 meter breaststroke was my go-to.
Okay.
But with swimming, I feel like a lot of swimmers are quite good at the mental side of things because, I mean, you're looking at tiles for hours and hours. But even if you're a sprinter, you're still doing the same sort of training. So you're still doing, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night. So you put all that work in.
Yeah. So for you, coming from the pressure of that I assume comes with swimming at that level, are you like kind of saying you didn't want to have to worry about running fast? Like, were you in some ways just saying, I just want to be able to enjoy this and maybe not have to always put pressure on speed and those incremental 1% gains, in your times and stuff?
Yeah. And I think also running as well for me was no pressure. It wasn't that I'd been training my whole life and, everyone's sort of watching, oh, well, you've always been good at swimming. With running, I was not good. I had started, in my mid-20s. So there was just no pressure there. So it didn't feel like if I changed, tactics and went ultra running compared to like, no one cares. No one knows who you are. So it's really it was just really nice. This like no pressure. You can just try whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like why you're an interesting person to talk to for where I'm at right now is so I want to get back to that where we had that technical difficulty then is coming back to the inspiration piece. Because, a 5K, 10K, I mean, I always said, if this was about fitness, we should just really hone in our 5K, 10K time. Like there's something bigger going on here. And so to do 650 kilometers across Portugal in 5 days, were you proving something to yourself? Was it a proving thing? Was it purely, I mean, like what's going on? Was there just a fire inside, like if you're a former elite swimmer, that fire hasn't had a place to terminate in a long time? Like what's the inspiration? What's the thing that makes it happen?
Yeah, I actually get asked this quite a lot, like why do you do it or why do you find joy in it? And it's such a hard question
Yeah.
because I really don't know why. And that's like the really honest answer.
Which is great.
I really don't know that, but there is something really, really special about the time that you have on that road with the people. And I don't know where that sort of came from because I've realized it really in TSP. And that's why I think I wanted to I think you could go and do TSP and be like, that was an amazing achievement. And I've done that and that's it. And I think initially when I did TSP, that was sort of where my mindset was. I was like, I've done 100K. This is an amazing sort of feat to do. 500K through the desert, and for me America is that sort of like really cool. I love like the sort of Western themed,
oh me too,
that idea. And I was like, there's something so cool about going from LA to Las Vegas. And for me I think there is where it was going to end. And I had such an amazing experience and bonding experience with these people that two of them I'd never met before. I think you might know Tyson, an amazing runner. Yeah.
Yes.
So we found each other on Instagram and I was like, there's a good vibe there.
Yeah.
Like, I trust you. And he wanted to come along for this journey just as crazy as me, like throwing someone in a camper van for 5 days. Why not? And you find these people in these experiences and made lifelong friends. And then it's almost like you're then chasing that experience again. So obviously it is about the running, but it's also about that bonding experience that you can't get in a race. In a 100K, when I go and race something like that, you're alone a lot of the time. You're racing and it's just you. Whereas these experiences that you make, there's just something so magical about it. I guess if you haven't done it, you don't have that bonding.
Right.
I wish I could show people the full amazing experience, but even when you capture it on film, you can't quite capture it all. It's really hard to describe.
I have a friend who's an evolutionary biologist, and he said that it's the chemicals that fire, under that sort of duress when you're alongside somebody are like it's the bonding chemicals, like like your body is like in those moments, it's, it's bonding you to those people that you're in that deep suffering with. It's like, war with soldiers. It's, those are the similar chemicals that are firing when you're out there. But I wonder if, like, okay, if you're at, TSP, you're in that desert, you're in, I don't know if do you actually go through Death Valley? Like you're out in that awful, awful heat, intense, really your shoes are melting on the road, that sort of heat. Like, in your darkest moment, was there a moment where you just wanted to quit and didn't? And if so, how did you put the next foot in front of you?
Yeah. I think in my darkest moments, usually I just think, let's just get to the camper van. Like, you can always do another kilometer. In my head, and was that you can always do 1K. And I think that's what's quite nice about ultra running is that, when you're pushing yourself in a marathon and you're trying to sprint, it's that really like, it's a different sort of pain. Whereas in an ultra marathon, you can stop, you can rethink, you can have a snack, have a snack and a nap, and that will sort you right out.
Yeah.
And usually for me, it's food. Have a little snack, my grumpiness goes away. But I would just say, just walk a kilometer. If you can walk a kilometer, you can rethink things in a kilometer. Yeah. And if you rethink things in a kilometer, I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere. You've got to at least get to your van. And then you actually find that when you get to your van, you feel okay. And you're like, actually, I can carry on. Like, it's not that bad. So I think in my darkest moments, I always sort of think that. I'm always like, you can do a bit more. There's always a little bit more that you can give. And you just keep reassessing. And amazing. All of a sudden, you're at the end.
Okay, so I'm going to assume that there was just one, like at each. So I think it works for the sake of the question. Let's assume there was the single most darkest challenging moment at TSP.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a single darkest, most challenging moment of your run across Portugal. If you overlay those, is there something in common to both of those? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is your version of deep and dark, is it the same, you know what I mean, from event to event, or was it totally unique experiences?
I'd say completely unique. I think Portugal, I had a moment really early on, actually, on day 2, where I had a hip problem, and that just really made me frustrated. And I don't like feeling that feeling. I like feeling not completely in control, but like I'm doing this. I'm in a swing. I can, as long as I can problem solve, I feel like I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like I couldn't problem solve my hip on day 2, and that got me really frustrated. A change of shoes solved everything. And then TSP, my darkest moment was just a general exhaustion. We went into the power line, which is, off any sort of main road, and we did about almost 70k unsupported. We didn't take enough water, we didn't take enough food, and we were like sort of hallucinating at the end, and I just couldn't stop crying. And yeah, it was just general exhaustion. That's all it was.
All right. So when I think about, back to the self-expression thing, because I think about this in terms of creativity, because what you're doing, I think what TSP does is somewhat of an organized version of what you did in Portugal. And just what I mean by that is it's like, there's like a loose structure to it. Like, we're going to start here, we're going to end here. But the difference is that there's multiple people, there's teams, there's some more community happening here, but there's a lot of creativity involved on your end still to get from LA to Vegas. Of course, it's not just a little bit of creativity in your court for Portugal. It's all your creativity. It's just you, your team, your strategy, all of that sort of stuff. So the self-expression movement, as I'm understanding it, as I'm wrapping my mind around it, you see, a lot of brands coming out and living squarely in it, maybe led by Satisfy at first, but then, there's a bunch of really awesome brands out there doing it. Where does your running play into you expressing who you are? Like, the old British punk rock bands I think about, the 70s, the 80s, obviously happening in America, the Ramones up to Green Day and so on. Like, when you run, is it that? Are you in that camp? Do you think of it that way at all?
Oh, I don't know. I've never been asked that question,
Yeah.
I guess it is self-expression to a certain extent. I feel more confident when I'm running. You can really go into your own mind and think about everything. But I don't know. I mean, maybe I am, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, actually.
I think that's perfectly fair too. I think oftentimes the people who have the most influence, and I think of TSP in this vein, like you've got conviction around something and you're just running. You're not literally, figuratively going toward it to accomplish it. And you're going toward it with such like a singularity and a singularity of focus and a mission. And all of a sudden people are watching you and becoming inspired by you. And I think maybe that to me, because, I look at a Mikey Kratzer, the reason I think about, like, I'm just thinking about this a lot because I'm trying to wrap my mind around it. He's doing it and kind of doing the same thing. Like, he's kind of marching to the beat of his own drummer, same way that it appears that you are. But there's this crossover of TSP kind of being like where a lot of people who are like-minded are showing up. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people who are just doing their own thing, and what their own thing ends up being sometimes is going just absurd distances, either somewhat organized by TSP or not organized by TSP at all. And you've just got a conviction you're going somewhere, but none of them, I think maybe here's my bigger point. None of them are like races, like, classic events of 100K. That's totally its own community. And I'm seeing this self-expression thing through my friend Brian as this totally other world. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, we all have things in common. Like, a lot of us have like either been really hard partiers and like now clean.
Yes.
We all seem to have like this terrible weird past.
Yeah.
We've like found running and this is the new drug to take.
Yep.
And we all seem to have a lot of tattoos. seems to be like from one pain to another pain. That
Yeah.
seems to be what happens. And I think there's just something, it's like it's not doing the norm, which
Yeah.
obviously if you go through like racing and you're doing like track and then you're doing, races, I think that's the organized sort of norm. Whereas doing these races or like TSP and creating your own routes, you're going against what is the norm. And I
Yeah.
think that's probably why we've all found ourselves in this sort of little camp, because we all want to do something a bit different.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. I think about it, in music terms, also like pop, like events are kind of like pop music in that it's being served up to you. There's a race director, there's permits, there's insurance, there's aid stations. It's like, it's not easy. I mean, I've DNF'd 8 of 10 attempts at the 100-miler. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it's like, here's your experience served up to you. Now go get it. And, you're safe the whole way. We know where you are the whole way. There's this element of something happening there. And I feel like the best thing I can think of with the self-expression movement is the equivalent to punk rock. When it was coming up before, 80s, early 90s and before, it was just people doing their own thing, and it happened to sound a certain way. And then that sound became popular and became commercialized and became this other stuff. But it's people who got tired of another thing that was hard on their bodies and decided to go into this thing, which is hard on your body, but you maybe the next day you feel proud of yourself compared to the old lifestyle where the next day you possibly didn't.
Yeah. And I think, it is just wanting something a bit different. And I think it's also doing it for yourself. I think the running, although it is competitive, if you're going for like FKTs and things like that,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people that want to do these things and create it themselves, it is, or at least in my case, it's definitely more that I want to prove to myself. And obviously if I do all these, if I complete other things, that's amazing.
Right.
But I really want to prove to myself. Whereas in a race, I think it's more competitive and you're proving to others, or that's how I think anyways.
Yeah.
If I'm going for like podium or things like that, then it's a different sort of competitiveness. Whereas
Yep.
I'm like, I want to compete against what my body can do.
Yeah. Do you look back at those extremely hot times or hard times in Portugal and America and like long to be back in that hardest part? You know what I mean? Like, is there like and that's somewhat sadistic, but that's kind of where I am. Like, I long to be back in those moments that made me quit last time so I can try again, but you didn't quit. But I'm saying, like, do you long for the worst part of the pain?
It's weird because literally like 3 days after I've done anything like this, I can only think of the good things.
Yeah.
I think the pain just melts away so fast.
Yeah.
It's really quite crazy how fast that pain melts away. And I remember on the last night of Portugal, I was in not like pain, but just so much discomfort that I couldn't really sleep. I was like, I just can't wait for this to be over. Like tomorrow I get to finish. And Ollie was like, don't wish it away. Don't wish tomorrow away, because I know as soon as you finish, you'll be like, oh, I want to be back running again.
Yeah.
But at the time you're like, just get it done, just get it done. And then all of a sudden it's done. You're like, no, take me back. Take me
Yes.
back.
For me, the hardest thing, like the worst parts of my, just day in and day out life are after my big goal thing is over. So it sounds like, did you say that you went from TSP to afterwards thinking like, okay, what's my next big thing? Was Portugal also a reaction to TSP being over and like the post, big effort funk?
Yeah, I think I really try and make an effort to have time after a race or an event like that where I really focus on feeling the accomplishment of what I've done.
Oh.
I think it's so easy, especially with social media and being on social media. People are like, what's next? What's next?
Yeah.
And I really try and make sure I make it a point that I stay in that moment. Obviously, your mind always wanders and you're like, I want to do the next thing. But I think it's so easy to get caught up in what's next. Even if you've just finished, like you've done a PB, you're always thinking, well, I could have done better. Well, I could have done this.
Right.
So I think it's really important to try and just be accomplished for that small moment of time before you move on. But saying that, I did, yeah.
But anyways, Australia?
Back on the flight, I was like, what next? I didn't vocally say it for a while until
Yeah.
I processed it. And I think for a long time, I really wanted to do TSP again.
Mm.
I was really like, because I had such an amazing time. I was like, I want to get back out there. And then I thought, well, like, why am I going back out there? Am I going back out there to try and beat my last time or do a different route? And I really thought about that for a long time. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll go back out there and do it as a team. But I really like running for long distances by myself. So
Yeah.
I was like, maybe not a relay team. And we found out we were moving to Portugal, and that's sort of where the snowball sort of happened. And it's like, right, okay, why do I need to go to America? What's on my front door? How is an adventure more accessible to people that just, I understand it's a lot of privilege to be able to get sponsorship and, find that. But can it be more inspiring to people that can just do it wherever? It doesn't have to be TSP.
Yeah. And did you say, so your route for Portugal, is it the same as the Way of St. James? Like, does it end this in Spain where like at the St. James, like,
the big cathedral?
Yes.
So it ends there where there's loads of caminos that all come into the same place. Yeah. So
my wife did the Camino de Santiago across like the final 100 miles of Spain. So just along the top, where it ended up there. So that's interesting. How close is that to the Portuguese border?
It is pretty close. So we were only in Spain for the last day.
Okay.
So you're not in it for very long. I think it might have been maybe 60. No, maybe it was about 100 kilometers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. So, I mean, do you have is it an intentional practice of like recognizing what you've accomplished? Like, do you have a method, to say, okay, I'm not going to just immediately, because for me, I'm coming out of the big event and, I'm buying cigarettes, like I'm like in despair. Like, I'm just like, okay, I'm done with my lungs. I don't need them anymore for that stuff. And so, I'm just kind of in this, like, okay, who am I? What am I? And for a while I thought, okay, I need to fix this. I need to like be okay in this moment. And now I'm just like, just plan your next event before your big A event. Now go ahead and have next year's A planned. So when you're done, you don't have that spiral. Do you have an intentional practice?
I think I always take a month off where I make sure my mind is like, I run here and there, but like there's no sort of plan, nothing's going on. I try and take time to spend with friends more and with my partner, just do things that maybe like normal people would do, like go for a drink, go for a meal, not go to bed at like 8 a.m. Things like that when I'm training really like intensely that I don't like doing because it gets me out of my rhythm. So I take that month to really just sort of just say yes to things.
Yeah.
I'm starting to learn to surf here. Just things like that. Just go and have fun.
Yeah.
And don't think about running or if it's going to hurt the running or all of that. But in the background, alongside all of that, I do carry on planning. So I've got the next big run planned and I've got races in the air, but that also comes with, I guess, the content side of what I do.
Yeah.
I have to be thinking about not only the running and the races, but also what content would be really good to show people and things like that.
Yeah. Have you announced it?
I have not yet. No,
okay.
It will be October this year.
Okay.
In England. So that'll be fun.
Nice. Well, I texted Niels Aaron before coming on this. So just also wanted to say on here that he says hi. He's the guy who, the guy behind the guy at TSP.
Yeah.
But I texted him because I was like, man, so he sends me this text. He's like, hey, you should run TSP solo from Chamonix to Marseille in August. And I was like, I'm not be ready for that. And I've DNF'd too many times in my life and I want to finish that one. I'm just not going to be ready for it. And then a few days go by. I'm like, shit, I'd love to DNF that. Like that would be a dream come true, but I'm not going to do it. But I'm just going back and forth with my other stuff. Like, okay, the bug has been, you have put the bug, like, I'm just like, I know there's lots of TSP stuff. I need to dig in. My history is the American West. Like all my tattoos are all American West icons. Like to run LA to Las Vegas would be a dream. Anywhere in that American West desert. But for my first big thing, I'd love for it to be TSP because there's just enough structure to make me feel like, it's not just immediately jumping to running across Australia, running across Portugal, and that level of planning.
And that makes sense as well, because I think that's sort of what I did. It was a good, like, it's like the stepping stone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it is a good way to get into it. And there's Atacama as well. I always have my eye on Atacama. That looks insane.
Yeah, the pictures that come out of it. I mean, that's the hard part of TSP. That's the hard part of anything ultra, really. Like, the content that comes out of it is deceptive. Even in the moments of despair, it's deceptive. You watch someone run a 100-miler and they're still running fast at mile 90. The content that comes out of TSP makes you think you can do it too. It's like,
I mean, I watched back my little video, and it's weird because I have so many different memories than that video.
yeah,
And seeing some of it, I was so like, oh, I can't really remember it.
yeah,
But my idea of how it went is so different than what is captured, because you don't have a camera with you in all those moments and you can't get to all those moments. So
right.
I'm actually really excited about seeing when the Portugal one comes out, because you just see a whole different perspective, like the people in the van's perspective almost of what you're doing. It's just so different.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm stoked. Maybe as a final thought here, anybody who's on the edge, thinking about these bigger events, again, I'm stoked to see Mikey do TSP solo against all the stuff that you've done. Just these names again: Will Googe, Neb Brockman, Robbie Ballinger, people who done these events and they're cool events, done these things and they're cool to watch. Like, what's the sell? Like, if you were to say, hey, if you're on the edge, there's probably 7 of us. I don't know how many are like thinking maybe I could do that, but what's the sell? Like, would you do it? You clearly would do it again. Why?
I think for me, I love saying yes. I am a yes person. If there's something that is dropped in front of me, I always think, well, what if this opportunity never comes again? What if, I break my leg and next year that event's not happening, or, all these things. So I don't even think twice about it. I always say yes. And actually, Ollie's the person you're always going, yeah, but maybe you should think about being the sensible person in the back of my mind. Whereas I'm like, yeah, I'll run 100K, yeah, I'll run like that. Whereas I guess if you're on the fence, just think, will you be able to do it again? Like, will you have this opportunity? Like, why not? Why aren't you saying yes? Why just not go for it?
I love that. So that most of the time, that's where I'm at. I always say, like, people I work best with is that we start with yes and then we talk ourselves out of it, because it's real hard to be around someone who starts with no and you have to talk them into it. Like, that is just the least fun, scenario for me. So I like that. Start with yes and then be talked out of it. I really feel like, I didn't miss a chance with Marseille. I'm just not, the fitness just is objectively not there. But I'm not going to say no to another chance.
Yeah. Go say yes every time.
Well, Lydia, thanks. Congrats on all the fun stuff that you're out there doing. I can't wait until you announce what's next. We'll be paying attention, but I appreciate you making the time today.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
All right. Yep. See you.